Will the hotel Wi-Fi last through this countdown? Will we be able to hear the canned rock music that you all love?
There we go. I heard it. Da-na-na-na.
It's a coming in hot. Like
Reverb.
Andrew Mason. He called the reverb. Andrew Mason with some breaking news today, ladies and gentlemen. Those are fun days, mate. Fun days indeed. Mobile, Alabama, Senior Bowl 2024. Orange and blue today. 2 OBT2 is an even a bigger BFD than the BFD that is OBT, and we thank Will and, of course, Jake for getting it done earlier today. But Mace, you've got some breaking news from the Senior Bowl, so let's get into this. The Broncos have talked to one quarterback 2 times.
Yes, and doesn't mean they haven't talked to others, but it's, I think, significant that they already have had a couple of interviews with Michael Pratt of Tulane, the source being Michael Pratt of Tulane. He confirmed that to us today when we were chatting with him over at Senior Bowl Media Day. But I say we just roll the clip, roll the footage. The sound, it's a little shaky, but you can make out what he's saying. Let's hear what Michael Pratt had to say. First of all, when I asked him about running a Sean Payton offense, because of course Sean Payton has connections with Tulane. Tulane's offensive line coach last year worked 10 seasons with the Saints, 9 seasons under Sean Payton, and would tell Drew Brees stories and even some Sean Payton stories to the guys on Tulane, including Michael Pratt. But Pratt sees the offense as a good fit, and then I asked him, of course, had he met with the Broncos. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
I think that would be awesome. I think that's something that I excel in is my intermediate pass game, being consistent, that kind of stuff. So, just from what I have seen from his style of offense, it's something that I feel like I'll definitely fit into really well.
Have you spoken with the Broncos yet in this process?
Yes, I had a couple interviews with them.
What did you think of how those went?
It went really well. A lot of just background stuff, getting to know him, kind of person, support system, all that kind of stuff. So it's been good.
Having one chat at this point is not really news, right? The Broncos have a phalanx of scouting staffers here. They were in Texas at the Shrine Bowl over the weekend. Their job is to talk to plenty of players and begin getting intel. So having a conversation with Michael Pratt at this point, it would be news, but it wouldn't be as interesting as having multiple conversations.
Right.
And then when you tie that into the fact that his skill set does mesh with a Sean Payton offense, that there are connections. Sean Payton and his staff have connections, not just with Tulane, but with LSU, with a great many football playing universities across the state of Louisiana. And with good reason, because Louisiana as a state punches well above its weight in producing NFL caliber talent. That's a good place to be wired into the football player development scene. So you take the factors, and then on top of that, the Broncos not picking until number 12. They may want to go up to the top 3, but they may not find a willing partner anywhere among those 3 teams, because Chicago, Washington, New England could very well go quarterback at the top of the draft, which means you have to start looking at other avenues if you want to find a young rookie quarterback, and those avenues may lead them to Michael Pratt's doorstep.
Yeah, and that may be something Broncos fans will have to warm up to, Mace, and I'm glad that you mentioned what could happen, but for what we know right now, again, it's the last day of January. The buzz that is being put out there is the top 3 picks are not moving. I do not believe that at all.
It's early.
This is too early, and it's teams that are posturing because what else are they going to say?
Right.
They're not going to say, yeah, we're for sale. They're going to say, we're not moving. So we'll see if they can move. But Pratt, this seems – we have a conversation, Mace. I was going to do this with you anyway, and then the Pratt news broke, and you had that breaking news from the press conference. But I was going to say, what's more likely? They move up with a power move, or they end up moving back, because Nix isn't the guy. Nix is not taking the Senior Bowl by storm. And because Nix is kind of struggling here, Pratt is the best quarterback we've seen in 2 All-Star games. Michael Pratt's the best quarterback we've seen. I can say that assuredly. We can debate it. But what's more likely, a power move up, or, hey, move back, get more picks, end up getting Pratt?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I still think Penix is the best quarterback we've seen over this week, but Penix comes with injury concerns. And you're not going to get to the bottom of those until you get to the combine next month and you start going through the medicals.
Right.
At this point, this is doing all of your research, gathering as much intel as you possibly can. And yeah, for Michael Pratt, that's going to include the connections the Broncos have with the Saints. They probably already have a fair amount of info on Michael Pratt. Anyway, it's a sport and a business of connections. We know that, but this is intriguing. Again, it was, if he just said, "Yeah, I've chatted with the Broncos," we would have put a story up. I don't think it would have had the same fervor.
Well, let's say this.
When you say a couple of interviews is where, okay, the spidey sense starts to tingle a little bit.
Right. And I will say something, not to interrupt you, but, and nobody has this out there yet, but we talked to Luke McCaffrey, who's met with the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
It was once, it was also with 32 teams. So, yeah, it's the twice thing. It's the multiple meetings. It's the get to know, because you're going to get to know.
Yeah.
But then what's the second meeting?
Multiple already.
Yes.
That's another
It's
thing.
Wednesday, dude.
Yeah. Yes. It's January 31st. So how many conversations, interviews is that going to become with Michael Pratt over the next few months? Okay, I mean, we could be talking about the combine. We could be talking about pro day. We could be talking about a top 30 visit in April. Not to mention just talking on the phone, right? I mean, there's a lot of that goes on.
Sure.
And if you're the Broncos, this is where you want to make sure that on every one of these quarterbacks, that nobody has more information than you. Now, that being said, in some cases, you're going to have more extensive and better information. And the 2 cases where the Broncos probably will have that are, again, both quarterbacks who played their college ball this past year in the state of Louisiana, Jayden Daniels and Michael Pratt, because in both places, Sean Payton and his staff are exceptionally plugged in to what's going on. They know people. They know how to get information. And one thing I'll say is this, Cease. We're going to debate these quarterbacks from here to high heaven over the next few months, right? If the Broncos invest a substantial draft pick in any of them, they're doing so because that's the person that Sean Payton believes in, right? That they've gathered their information and they feel like they've got everything they need.
Gathering information, feeling like they have everything they need. And one thing that they have on their staff right now is the guy that recruited Jayden Daniels to LSU. They're is the linebackers pass rush coach, right? Mm-hmm. So they have a coach already on the roster that's been with the Broncos that brought Jayden Daniels to LSU. So there's a connection. Sean Payton's already got connections. Michael Pratt has been doing a good job, Mace. We've talked about him, like not the best guy out there in terms of any one of those skills, but the most consistent. And he talked about it when you brought up Sean Payton's offense. It's a Sean Payton offense. You got to be consistent and efficient and maybe not exciting or sexy, but listen, Michael Pratt's not a bad quarterback. And he might be the choice the Broncos are left with if those top 3 picks, in fact, do not move and will not move.
Mm-hmm. Right. And now then the question becomes, can you stand pat with where you are in the third round and get him, or do you have to start making some moves here? And this, again, we don't know that right now because we don't know what the landscape is going to look like.
Right.
Like, okay, let's assume for a second that Michael Penix Jr. checks out on the medicals and that he makes sure that all those any concerns that exist about him are put to rest, right? In that case, you probably look at Pratt as QB 7 off the board, which could take you there into the third round. If the reports aren't as good on Michael Penix Jr. and he falls maybe into the third round, which is something there's been some buzz about over the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. And then it's very possible that Michael Pratt becomes QB 6, the first, and I would offer the first quarterback of day 2, because I do think J.J. McCarthy is going to be in round 1. And even though he's having a rough week, I still think Bo Nix is going to end up in round 1. I will say this in Bo Nix's defense: the team for which he is playing and the coaching staff for which he is playing in the Senior Bowl, their practice structure is not doing him any favors, because for a second straight day they did not run 7-on-7, which means that if you're a quarterback, especially like Bo Nix, and you're a rhythm and timing passer, one of the ways that 7-on-7 helps you pull that off is it allows you to get the rhythm and timing down without pressure. So then you are not thinking about your steps, you're not thinking about your marks, you're just hitting them, and then all you're worried about is pressure. Well, when you haven't put in the 7-on-7 work, and again, we learned this with the Broncos and Nathaniel Hackett back in 2022, you don't put in that work, you're not establishing that base, and so things can more easily devolve when you're talking about operating under pressure. And I think and especially it's exacerbated when you've got all these guys thrown together in an all-star game format for practice. So I'm not making an excuse here. There are excuses and there are reasons. I believe there is a reason that part of the reason why Bo Nix has not flashed here is the structure of practice has not played to his strengths in allowing him to get that rhythm and timing down, which is absolutely essential for him being a viable NFL quarterback.
They need to have a standardized structure for practice because it's doing a disservice to a player like Bo Nix. Now, something that you picked up on at the opening press conferences, Mace, something I picked up on today personally with an answer to one of my questions, because here's also what's the problem is with this practice structure, dude. They're developing bad habits, and it's just a little bit, it's just a week, so he could be able to get out of this bad habit, but he's got a hitch step in his drop back. It's one of the things that drives me insane. And like just seeing that extra step, because it's not a true step. It's a hitch and then a step. Your first step, your first kick step needs to be the largest and fast. And he does a little like hop and then step.
Yeah.
That's a bad habit because he hasn't worked from under center. I asked him, what's your confidence level playing or comfort level playing under center? And he goes, 100% comfortable.
I like that
attitude.
Curt but courteous is how I would describe that. He had a similar answer yesterday at his press conference when he was asked about criticism of him having a slow processor on long developing plays, right? There was an edge to him. I like that.
I like it too, man.
Yeah. I have a little bit more trust of somebody when I see that jagged edge, you know?
That's why you trust me, because I got edges all over.
Yeah, when it's all smooth and happy and natural, or not natural, smooth and happy and neutral.
Unnatural.
I don't trust that. But when you see kind of the raw, and it can be negative, right? But that's okay. Like, you know, in life we get angry. Life is messy, right? It can't all be happy and smooth and positive vibes and, you know, yay, you know, or, you know, it can't always be that way. Sometimes things are going to get under your skin. I mean, look, Russell Wilson wasn't always the person at the press conferences who, just was completely neutral, right? You got under his skin here in Mobile 12 years ago, right?
Sacred anger is a gift. Righteous indignation, it's fine. You need to feel that.
Righteous indignation. The key word is righteous.
Yeah, and Bo Nix will get a little pissed, honestly, if you're going to ask him a question that he's, a little gritchy, and I'm fine with that, dude. I'm fine with that. I think the slow read thing, I didn't catch that question. I didn't ask that.
That was yesterday. It was yesterday morning.
Yesterday, right.
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't necessarily like that, inquiring that way in that format. It's an opening press conference.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was toward the end. It was, clearly it was coming in hot, and clearly Nick's bristled at that. Although, I mean, one thing that we can say that, again, I explained how these practices, the structure of them is not doing Bo Nix any favors, but definitely in terms of the processing under pressure as things develop, that is something with which he has struggled, and something that Michael Pratt, for example, has done really well so far. A good compare and contrast I would offer from moments that each of them had today when they scrambled. Bo Nix, he's scrambling too late. In a game condition, that's going to be a sack. It's going to be a disaster. Michael Pratt steps forward and commits to the scramble earlier. Thus, first of all, recognizing quickly everybody's covered, right? And by the way, I'm not sure any position group out here as a whole is impressing me more than the corners, because they are plastering these receivers, both teams. And that's creating some problems, but it's also creating some illuminating moments for the quarterbacks. And so when you see Michael Pratt quickly identify there's nothing that this coverage is going to offer, he steps up, he scrambles, he gets out. That's a positive. And that keeps your offense on schedule. Sean Payton wants an offense that stays on schedule. Okay. And so that is I think a key aspect of Michael Pratt's game that he's probably going to like as he studies the film on him.
Yeah, and the studying has begun, and then some in Mobile, Alabama. Mesa, little OBT2 for everybody. You and I've got more work and then some dinner.
Well, it's OBT1 for us. I mean, because we didn't do the other one.
Right. We'll also be out of action on Friday, but plenty of stuff, plenty of good stuff. My goodness, everything we've done from Texas to here. We got from the end of the season locker room till here. We got a bunch of great stuff coming up for you. So, Mason, I think that's a wrap for tonight's show, brother.
Yeah, we'll keep it focused. It's about we're looking at 18 minutes here. That's about good. That's good. It's good for an extra show. Good to get another hour work in here before we go grab some grub. So,
okay.
Yeah, we like each other. We're eating dinner together.
I'm behaving myself, Mace. I'm glad I'm a person that you can get along with. That makes me feel good. So
okay, all right. Are you doing okay? Are you okay?
How are you feeling? Are we fine? No.
Elmo from Sesame Street is asking the entire world how they're doing. Right.
Right.
So I'm asking how are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm asking if you're watching out there, how are you doing? Yes.
How are you doing, Broncos country?
Are you okay?
You can move up. You can move back. You can stay.
Let me throw something real quick before we go.
Sure.
Let's say Michael Pratt settles as a second rounder and the Broncos take him. Of course, the Broncos don't have a second round pick. The notion of Justin Simmons for Michael Pratt, basically.
Don't think I like that.
That if you put it in those terms,
I don't think I like that.
That hurts a bit. But Justin Simmons, if you trade him, you're probably looking at a second round pick.
Right.
Not a 1, probably a 2.
Yep.
I think you'd feel better about it in your heart if you got to the second round by trading down from 12. Say you trade from 12 to 24 and pick up a second round pick, for example. I think that would settle better than the player capital to move down to get a second round pick. And basically, again, second round quarterbacks, the odds aren't great. mean, the odds aren't. There's certainly not. There's no certainty of getting a quarterback early in them working out, but those odds drop precipitously as you go on through the draft. They drop to the back half of round 1. They drop to round 2. They drop to round 3, and on down the line, to where you understand just how galactic an outlier that Brock Purdy is, right? In starting in the Super Bowl for the 49ers as the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, that's why I always kind of giggle when someone's like, who's this year's Brock Purdy? Nobody.
Okay.
I was going to buy insurance from Brock Purdy 2 years ago.
Brock Purdy, so he's the first quarterback in the 7th round with any kind of real tangible success since Trevor Siemian, right?
I believe so, yes.
And Trevor Siemian basically became a career backup.
Yes.
And Brock Purdy was drafted 7 years after Trevor Siemian. And you can also say Brock Purdy, most successful 7th round pick as a quarterback since, oh gosh, that's a tough one. Meditate on this, I will.
Okay.
But the thing
Sound
is,
like Yoda, you will too.
Yeah, but the point is, if you bet on the outlier, you better be prepared for a lot of misses in the interim before you get that right. So you get a Brock Purdy at the back end of a draft once every several years, at best. And oh, by the way, it took a perfect storm of being in an ideal scheme with one of the brightest coaches in football who's proven to maximize the output of his quarterbacks, and then a wondrous collection of skill position players. And oh, by the way, you're tied for the league lead on defense in Pro Bowlers with 4. Okay, you got talent all over the place. The Niners have a constellation of stars. Has Brock Purdy done well himself? Yes, he has but he has very much maximized the situation around him. If Brock Purdy had come to Denver in 2022 under Nathaniel Hackett and company, and by the way, what a blistering story in The Athletic this morning about the Jets and about Nathaniel Hackett in particular. Watching less film in camp than any other team, they figure. Yeah.
Not happy, fun baby star. Praying for Par asks, what's for dinner? I've never been to this place, Mace. It's one of your favorites, though.
Oysters. What they call flaming oysters. They have garlic, cheese, butter. It's all, fattening as heck, right? So good it must be fattening, but they're grilled, they come out hot, and they are tremendous. They'll give you a piece of bread because you'll want to sop up kind of the garlic, butter, cheese goodness that lingers.
I don't think I can eat any of this stuff, but it sounds great.
You can sample it.
I'll sample it.
Yeah.
He asked what Jordans, 72 and 10s.
Okay.
Ooh, took off my shoe.
Anyway.
Jordan 11s, 72 and 10s. They're beautiful.
How many pairs of shoes do you bring on a trip like this, Cease?
Oh, just one. I have to pick something comfortable because we're on our feet a lot. So
yes. Mm-hmm.
Let's go get some dinner.
Let's go get some dinner. We get our steps in on this trip, no doubt. But let's go eat. Let's have some food.
All right.
Some food and fellowship and all that. Appreciate you watching.
You go. You have to do a few things for us.
All right. You ready?
Yes.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
That's right. He's Mace. I'm Cease. OBT's BFD. Thanks, everybody. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?